Hey guys, welcome back to my workshop. In this video we're going to be looking at some Viking wall art pieces. It's part of a range I've been doing of some larger wall art. Now this is just going to be a few bits just to finish off the collection. So you probably noticed that I'm filming on a different camera. So I've been filming on a GoPro Hero 5, I think it is, since the beginning. And to be fair, I'm really not happy with specifically the audio quality. Always seem to be losing audio. So I've dragged the wife's expensive DSLR out of the cupboard, dusted it off, and we'll give that a go, see how it works for us. But yeah, so we're going to go over to the computer now, and I'll show you then sort of how I've made these pieces, and we'll take it from there. Fire it over to the CNC, get them cut, and hopefully in this single video then we can put some stain on them and start to bring these pieces to life. So anyway, let's hop over to the computer and we'll take it from there.
Hey guys, so as I said earlier, these are going to be the two symbols that we're going to be working on. Okay, so I've already pretty much made the file, but just as a quick recap, here's the bitmap. One second. Delete that off. Right, so what we'll do is we'll open up the bitmaps again. Okay, so here's the bitmap that I've traced. Okay, really simple, just using the bitmap trace tool. It's black. What I find I usually get better results in is just to make this as dark as possible. Okay, the threshold, make that as dark as possible. Now you should be able to get away with sort of a medium noise filter and medium sort of corner fit on this. So if we press preview, it's pretty much coming out exactly as I have before. So what you'll actually notice now is these little lines here can get sort of decidedly wibbly and wobbly where it's picking up some of this noise. Now I've left some of it and I've worked on some of it, and I wanted to leave some of it so it doesn't look perfect in all straight lines. But if you wanted to alter it again, you can just press N on your keypad, okay, and it will take you into node edit mode. Okay, so from node edit mode then you can physically go through by holding the cursor over each point and pressing D. It will effectively delete. Okay, you can press S to make them smooth. Okay, so that'd be blue. And I don't actually know the shortcut to make them not smooth again. Anyway, just as an example, you can go through and you can pick up. Now, the more node points you have, the noisier it's going to be, the longer your machine timing is going to be, because effectively what that's going to do is that is going to pick up every single node as an operation. So what you can do is you can mess around with certain bits where you can bring this one up, delete this one, swing them round, doodle about them until you get a more desired sort of shape. Okay, so you notice on one of these 9 Nordic points, we've now got, you know, a much better point. Okay, and we can just go down all these smooth nodes. Again, we want straight lines, so we don't want smooth nodes. You can actually theoretically delete 90% of them. Okay, you come down into these corners. This one's a bad example. You come down into a lot of these corners, and what you're going to have, here we go, good example, is multiple nodes then. Okay, so you can mess around them to your heart's content, get them exactly as you want. However, I'll be really quick to say that mine isn't perfect. Some of these points I've made really well, okay, but the rest of it isn't perfect, and I didn't want it to be perfect. So anyway, that's how we go about that. Now I need to find out how to get out of node edit mode without pressing exit. That would be my normal one, because how do I get out of node edit mode without pressing exit? Because that's going to stop my screen recording, you see. So that's slightly frustrating, isn't it? So I've got node edit mode. Oh, if I just press N again, yeah, it takes me out of node edit mode. Fantastic. Right, so just for this one, I've taken this design here and I flipped it upside down, because then that way the two triangles work, and that means I can fit both of them into the same piece of stock. Now I've taken these designs here. This one would be a prime example. Let me just move this down. Okay, and what I wanted to do is I wanted to create an extra boundary, and I created an extra boundary because if I went to Vcarve now and Vcarve this one over here, what we would have is this piece would be cut as just an internal. That's not what we want. We want it cut. It's this external here. Okay, so what I will do is I wanted to put a boundary around here. Okay, so if I come over to here and highlight all of this as a grouped piece, I want to create a 5mm boundary. And what you can actually see is that 5mm boundary has created a boundary around every single piece as individual vectors. Now, with all of these selected, that's not a problem, because what I've got here is the weld feature. Okay, now this weld feature in an instant can change that, whereas I used to spend ages snipping all these individual pieces. But if you watch this now, if I press that weld has welded all the outside of the vectors. It's left me with a little bit of noise because it's left me with these 3 individual points. But hey presto. So now if I enter this and hold shift and also select this outer boundary, what I will get now is this. Okay, so where it's going to leave this, originally that was carved out as the high spot, now we're going to carve the inside out, and we're going to create this extra little boundary around here to cut, and we'll do away with that after. So anyway, that was just an example as to how I've created that. So again, if I select all this, okay, even if it was ungrouped, now I've got these ungrouped as separate vectors. If I hold down the left mouse button and drag up from the bottom right, any vector that I am touching will automatically be selected. If I hold with the left mouse button and come down to the bottom left, it's only vectors that I am completely encapsulating will be selected. Make sense? So you notice I'm touching all these vectors here, but I'm only completely encapsulating this one vector. I've only selected that. However, if I come out to here and just touch all of those, I've selected all of them in one hit. Now for this, I'm going to press G on the keypad. I'm going to group those together. So you do have grouping and ungrouping objects is the right mouse button. I just find it easier to use the shortcuts. So I press that once, hold down shift, and I'll select my boundary, and I'll come over to this one here, and I'm going to center a line to section, and that's going to ping it now back to the center of where I started. So I'll delete this, and here's what I have. So I've got one Vcarve toolpath with a 6mm clearance bit, 10 by 13 by 60 degree V bit. I'm going to cut it as a climb, and I'm going to plunge passes, say 4mm plunge. Okay, I'll calculate those. And again, what we've got is we've still got a bit of noise left over from here, from our dummy pass. So that would be this one. So I'll delete that. Okay. So then what we've got is a profile pass. Now this profile pass, I'm going to select it to cut on this line. So it will cut this 50-50. Because as we V-carve this, you will end up with a V-shaped gully sitting in here. Okay. If I cut on the outside, what you're left then is the remnants of that gully. And it can be a pain in the backside to clean that off. So for this one, I am going to do a cut on the line. So effectively with a 6mm cutter, I'll be 3mm into this. Now that's a 5mm across, and I'll be 3mm into it. So it just leaves me with a little chamfer on the edges. Okay, so we'll plunge passes. Now again, this is something leads down here. Okay, over by my cursor here. Leads is something I've been using more and more. So I'm going to lead in at 45 degree. And I'm only going to have a 5mm lead, and I'm also going to lead out. So as I calculate that, 1 second, as I calculate that lead in and lead out, we will have a little area like here and here. Okay, so if we come down to these, what our cutter will do effectively is it will come into the timber over here, then it will move at a 45 degree over to the actual cut, and then it will start the cut. It will go all the way round, and then when it comes back out, it will come out at a 45 degree by 5mm, and then the tool will come up and down into the wood over here. So if you don't do that, what you can end up with is little hollow cuts from where that tool's spinning it, 18,000 RPM and just constantly rubbing up and down on that piece of wood. Easiest way to get around it is to add these little lead in and lead outs. I'm using these more and more. I think they're great. Okay, so the only thing we've got left to do now is to add some tabs. Okay, for softwoods and MDF, I don't actually add 3D tabs. Okay, the reason for that is they have a tendency to snap off. Now, one thing I'm thinking about is the grain of our wood is going to be running in this direction. Okay, so if I put a tab here, as I cut that off, it's going to be tearing all this grain. So I can put tabs here, okay, because the grain running up this way, it's only going to push the grain sort of further in. And I don't mind putting some tabs on the end grain, all right? So you still got plenty of tabs. I'm just not going to put any on, I'm going to kind of need to, aren't I? So we're going to risk it for a biscuit, and we'll put one there, all right? But I wouldn't put loads of them around here because, like I said, the end grain is going to be there, and the router bit's going to be coming across this way to clean those off. So it's got a tendency to chip and split those bits of end grain off. But we'll go with it, all right? So let's take away some of these tabs, far too many. So our tabs are going to be 20mm long by 8mm tall. That should give us plenty of meat to play with. So looking at our piece here, that's what we're going to be left with. Okay, we're going to carve 6mm into this. So we'll have some nice big pocket reliefs here done with a 6mm pass, and then the V cutter is just going to come in and clean up these corners. All right, so that should come out quite nicely. And then when it's done, we will trim up these tabs there, apply some stain, and then sort of distress the top a little bit, then to expose some of the wood grain. So anyway, I'm going to look at this now as roughly 40 minutes runtime. Okay, and then we're going to start to save some tool paths. So what I've got here is 6mm pass, 6mm pass, and then the Vcarve paths. So I've already got my Viking set up. So what we would do is call them symbols. No, wrong one. And what have we got here first? No, that's a profile pass. We don't want to create the profile. We want to do the clearance pass. So Viking symbols, 6mm clearance pass. There we go, done. Right, we're going to fire up Smartbench, and we will also fire up the file transfer software. Okay, now what we do is we go in, come on, we'll go into our CNC plans, scroll all the way down, find the Viking stuff, symbols. So effectively there is my G code. Okay, so I can't find my Smartbench purely because it's not switched on. So one sec. While it's just refreshing, what I will do is I will save some of this Vcarve. Okay, so I saved my 3 sets of G code now. So as I open this one up, there's my 3 sets of G code, and there is my Smartbench. Okay, so what I could do now is I can hold Shift, I can select all 3 pieces of G code, and I can put them over to the Smartbench all at the same time. So you'll notice how quick that is, and that is now effectively all 3 files on the Smartbench. So what we'll do is we'll come off the laptop, we will go over to the Smartbench itself, we'll get set up, we'll cut it. See you in a moment. Okay, so because it's a new camera setup, I'm taking a bit of a punt on how well you can hear me. But what we've got here is this piece of pine prem board, okay? And I have gone up and down and set up a plan for this spoil board to create some Vcarve lines for lining up stock and projects. Now, I was cutting a section of this yesterday, so I know
the X-beam is set to the correct height, so it's just a case of fixing this down now. So I've got a couple of screw locations already in this board. So very simply, very crudely, we're going to line this up and we're just going to screw it down. That's it. Okay, nice and simple. Now at this stage I'm going to take the square. I'm just going to create myself somewhere where I know I'm well out of the way of any fixing screws. I'm well out of the way of any cuts I've previously done. Okay, and yeah, and I can set my home location from there. Okay. Okay, so because this is the Precision Pro model, I've got the cross laser. So the idea is now we're going to mess around and get the crosshair to meet up with the line I've created, plus the physical edge of the board. Okay, and that way then, the home location is going to be set then for this project. What that's done is that's now moved the center of my cutter to the home location. Alright, so we know we're set. So all it leaves me to do at this stage is to set the height of the Z head. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to use a little knot down here on this piece of board. Okay, and I'm going to center the laser to the center of that knot. So that way, every time I set the Z height, in theory, I'm setting it from exactly the same point. It's a point that I'm not going to be carving away, and that way then I should get, as best as I can, an accurate Z height datum. Okay, so as ever, got the touch plate, ensuring that I'm not in contact with the X-beam in any way. I'm going to bring the Z head down. Now at this stage I'm around about 5 or 6 millimeters off. I'll press the Z0 button and that's going to automatically come down. You might be able to see everything turning. Now that is basically referenced off of the thickness of this touch plate to know where the surface of this stock is. Okay. Okay, so I'm going to take you off of the tripod for a minute. So apologies if it gets a little bit shaky from here on out. So what I've done now is I've asked it to set the cutter to the home location and now the cutter to the surface. And you can see the center of that cutter is now the center of our home location. And basically the cutter is basically, can I say basically one more time? And what you'll also see is that the cutter is just touching the surface. Okay, so it knows all its parameters. At this stage, we're going to select the files icon. Okay, and what it's doing is it's just loading all those files, and you'll see that this top line will change now to reflect our Viking symbols 6mm clearance pass. Yeah, that was the first one that we saved. So we'll go ahead and we'll ask it to prepare the file. We're also going to ask it to check for any errors on the file. And it's going to run through the G code and it's going to make sure that our workpiece fits within the parameters of the CNC bed. And yes, you'd be surprised how many times I've got that wrong. So we're going to ask it to function as a router. And we're also going to ask it to automatically remove the cutter if we pause the machine. Now that is now the machine running. Connected the extraction up. And it's going to start firing up now. So let's get ourselves section. Okay, so we've finished the first Vcarve clearance pass. Just move the X-beam out of the way. Now, nothing too exciting at this stage because it's just clearanced out these pocketed areas for this big knot, and just cleared out some of these smaller areas then for the 9-pointed triangle thingy-majigger. So we'll go and find our knot wherever it's gone. There we go, and we'll centre the head back to that knot again. And I'm going to change over spindles. Very fortunate to own 2 spindles. Now we've already got our 6mm cutter set up for the profile pass to cut the outside of these. So now what we're going to do is set up the spindle with the Vcarve cutter already built into it. Make sure that's secure. Now, we'll come down to here again. Remember, we're centered off of exactly the same reference point. So in theory, we should get a good accurate Z0. So I've had a bit of up and down in the past. Now some of that's timber moving, some of that is, I don't know, other factors, but Yeti assured me because it's built on the lead screws, the machine itself should in theory be accurate, so it must be other sort of factors. So we'll clear the bed again. We'll go back into the file selection and we're going to choose the second tool path now, which is the Viking Symbols Vcarve pass. Okay, again exactly the same. I'm going to ask it to check for any errors just to make sure the Z head can go up and down far enough to make all of the passes down to the 6mm depth. This will check every part of the G-code in the file. So sometimes it can take, with Vcarves, like big Vcarve projects, can take absolutely ages to check this, but it shouldn't take this long in this project. It's not huge. There we go, finished already. So again, we're going to ask it to run. Now what you'll see is the Z head, before it actually starts cutting, it's going to come all the way back to our home location and reference from our home location again. There we go. And then once it's referenced from the home location, it will fire the Z head up, and then it will go off and cut. And then there's our extraction. Okay, so that is saying this file's 100% done. So I'm happy with it. So I'll press the green man, double tap that, it will idle its way across, and that is the Vcarve done. It's really cool, eh? So now what we've got to do is we've got to cut the profile perimeters on both of these. I'm pretty chuffed with them, they look quite clean. So I've got a little bit of furries to clean up. You know, that's just normal. This is really soft, you know, soft pun. But what I'm finding is I don't clean up these fuzzes too much on the insides, because what that does is it grabs hold of the stain and has a tendency to go darker. So these are intended to be church oak stained. If I can get me words out. So I'm going to quickly change over tools now back to the 6mm, and then we can process the profile pass. So let's quickly get that done. So we've got number 2 spindle, our hex key, now I'm not too worried about zeroing this on that little knot there, because effectively this is just going to run a profile pass. So as long as it's very accurate, it doesn't have to be absolutely bang on. Come on. So we have spindle mounted. Now we've got to set the Z axis. Okay, so that's now the Z head set to the correct height. Put everything away off the bed. Good common practice. Okay, so we are now ready to rock and roll with the final pass of these, which is the profiles, including the tabs. So again, we'll go into the file management. We'll pick up the profile. Now, I'll check the errors on this, as I always do, just as a precaution, but this should check the errors pretty quick, because it's not much of a pass, shall we say. So it's just going through checking the errors. There we go, that's that done. We'll fire it up. Now again, it's going to come back to its home location. At that point it'll fire up the spindle. Okay, and then it will proceed then to start running the toolpath. Okay, so the Smartbench has just finished its sort of little cooling cycle. So we'll move the head out of the way, and hey presto, there you've got yourself 2 Viking symbols. So what we'll do now is we'll just have a little butchers. So this is what you've got. You can see there are some witness marks on the bottom of the cutter. Again, I want that. You can see some fuzzes there. I want that. I'm happy with that. There we go. It's got some nice grain pattern running down the centre of this. So where you've got that darker grain pattern, the stain won't sort of you know, fill into that so much. It will go into all this light yellow stuff, and then this it won't sit into. So what we'll do is we'll quickly get it cut out, and we'll clean them up, clean the tabs off, and we'll see if we can get some quick stain on them. But yeah, so far I'm quite happy with those. So as you can see, I've added a couple of T-slots. I don't know how well the camera's picking that up. Added a couple of T-slots to the back of each of these, and I've just rounded them over slightly just so they're a bit nicer to the touch. Okay, so to finish these pieces, I'm going to be using some Dulux wood sheen church oak stuff. It's pretty decent actually, to be fair, and it dries quite quick. And I will literally just be brush applying this stuff straight onto those pieces with some dirt cheap flux brushes. I like using the flux brushes because the reality is I can just chuck them away when I'm finished. I don't necessarily have to worry about them. So yeah, we just got ourselves a cheap flux brush. Nothing fancy. Bit too soft if I'm being honest, but they do the job. So, you know, all's well that ends well effectively. Zoom you in now onto this one. Yeah, so you get the effect. Let's wipe off some of this excess. Now obviously I'm going to go round and do all the edges and, you know, finish it all up. So when I'm wiping the excess away, I'm always going in the same direction as the grain, if that makes sense. So it just gives you a clean sort of effect without you seeing all the stain smeared. So you just about see the difference between the untouched light blonde and the stained one. That's good, eh? There we go. So that is both of these now sort of finished. So you can see on this one was the first one we painted. That finish is starting to dry back quite nicely now and go to sort of a real satin finish. So you can see where the stain is really starting to soak into the inner detail because that's a rougher cut. And then this one I've literally just finished now. You can see there's still got, you know, a fair bit of excess to soak in and stuff like that. So this one will take a couple of hours yet to, a couple of minutes yet to sort of dye back in. But as you can see, just by rubbing my finger over the top surface and blending this stain out, now that's sort of exposing this lovely grain underneath it, this lovely pine grain. So yeah, hope you guys liked the video, something a little bit different. Just want to spend a quick second, blow the dust off them. So these are some of my painted projects. So these take a lot more sort of time and finesse to get right to a finished project. But as you can see, these look really, really cool. You know, nice Scania badge there. And a nice Volvo one. You know, these are really cool, something quite different. But as you can just tell, there's a lot more that goes into these than goes into that. It's a really quick, easy win project. if you haven't done the authentic proper scan your badge, you just notice that I've lost the eyeball detail, so I just need to go back and carve the little tick into the eyeball. Again, you know, these are really cool. A little bit dusty, blow the dust off them, and you know, they look fantastic. So anyway, guys, I think this is probably a perfect time to wrap this video up. I hope you enjoyed it. Hope you got something from it. Anyone got any questions, sort of, you know, hit me up.